The following program was pre-recorded. To ask a question on the air, call 1-800-229-3000 Monday through Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific. Welcome to New Life Live with Stephen Arterburn. For 35 years, New Life has been transforming lives one at a time thanks to the giving hearts of you, our listeners. Our goal is to provide you with wisdom from God's Word to give you hope and help in life's hardest places. If you have a question you'd like to ask today, our phone lines are open. Call 1-800-229-3000. That number again is 1-800-229-3000. Now here's today's host, Becky Brown.
Hello, everyone. We are so glad that you decided to tune in today. However you are listening, we are here for you. And by we, I mean Dr. Sheri Keffer and Dr. Jacqui Mack-Harris. You know, Sheri, you have been a longtime favorite co-host, and as a psychologist and author and a speaker, people just love to hear your wisdom. Aww. And before we get to the calls, I would love to hear what you're thinking about.
Well, you know, it's interesting. Every week, there's just things that come my way, and I noodle on things. I just think about them and wonder about them and even want to talk about them out loud. And so I thought the thing I'd noodle about with you, Becky, is the difference between guilt and shame, and how guilt and even false guilt can be a motivator for us doing some wacky behaviors that don't really make sense. So shame, when I think about shame comes from typically trauma events in our lives, either something that has been done to us or something that we've done. And the brain wires in a trauma-induced negative belief. It may sound something like this: I'm not enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not in control, I can't trust anyone, I don't deserve love, I can't have love, I'm not safe. I mean, there's reasons the brain wires these things in. And then, you know, there's a lot of controversy over whether shame is all bad. There's actually healthy shame, which is I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed of what I've done. So not all shame is bad, but I really want to focus more on guilt. So when we feel guilt and it's false, what's happening is it's motivated by unhealthy shame. And what unhealthy guilt looks like is that, you know, we blame ourselves, we feel irredeemable, but we're more focused on worrying about what the other person is thinking about us than the harm that we've caused to them.
Right. So true.
Where healthy guilt, on the other hand, true guilt, is where we focus in on the other person that we've harmed. And we're highly motivated to take ownership of that harm that we've caused. We're highly motivated to focus in on them and make amends, do whatever we can do to repair that breach if it's at all possible. And I think that I see more false guilt or unhealthy guilt when people are doing wacky things, and I include myself in the wacky thing behavior, list, when we do things that end up creating more chaos for the very person or people that we've harmed.
Do you know, Sheri, I think a lot of it too is because we, many of us, don't have a true north. You know what I mean? Like the truth is flexible. And so the guilt can come and go, the shame comes and goes. Like you said, it can be a motivator to make those corrections, to right the wrongs in relationships. But I just love the idea of the awareness of which is it? Is it false guilt? Is it something I need to redeem or repair or ask for repentance, forgiveness, all of those kind of things?
Yeah. Like if I had a flashlight right now, I'd say false guilt is when I feel bad, but I focus the flashlight on me. Healthy guilt, when I want to make amends, is when I focus that flashlight on the other person and I'm doing whatever it takes to repair the wrong that I've done.
Wow, that's good. See, I told you. Sheri's good. Call us, 1-800-229-3000. We're going to be taking your calls. We'll be right back.
It had become very apparent that some of the things I was involved with were taking over my life.
In today's world, men are barraged with inappropriate content and images all day, every day. Some say that certain behaviors are just no big deal. They're just part of being a guy. But it's simply not true. It's a battleground for every man, and the opportunities to fail are everywhere. The Everyman's Battle Intensive can help.
After 7 years, he just, in one weekend, came back a completely changed man.
For over 20 years, New Life Ministries has been helping men regain their integrity and purity through their one-of-a-kind Everyman's Battle Intensive.
He said this is something that every man should go to. It was definitely life-changing.
Now the intensive is coming to Orange County, California, June 28th through the 30th. Don't wait for him to call. Register online at newlife.com or call 1-800-NEW-LIFE and use the discount code NLL to save $50.
I just can't say enough of what New Life has done for our marriage.
To find out more information about New Life or to order any of the resources mentioned on today's program, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Now back to New Life Live.
I'm Steve Arterburn with a New Life Moment. Hey, dads, have you ever considered the connection between the fact that Jesus of Nazareth appears to have been the most confident, assured man to ever walk the face of the earth and what his father said to him when he began his public life? This is my son, whom I love, with whom I am well pleased. That simple statement contains two powerful and invaluable messages every child needs to hear from his own father. He's loved and he's well-pleasing. To pronounce such a blessing upon a young man, or a man of any age for that matter, releases that pent-up anxiety that constantly wants to know, how am I doing, Dad? It's a simple but profound spoken expression of love and affirmation. What a gift I had to have a father who always said, I'm proud of you. If you're a dad, please give your child this invaluable gift. And if you'd like some tips on how to go about it, please visit me at newlife.com. I'm Steve Arterburn, and thanks for listening to this New Life Moment.
I always love to hear the wisdom that Steve shares, and that is so powerful because we just passed Father's Day recently, and many of you know that I lost my dad, passed away at 91, lived a great life, but we hear so many times where people struggle with father wounds. And, you know, if you're struggling as a dad, then give us a call. We'll help you get into a new way of being a father. It just is never too late. We want to keep you moving forward, and we're so excited. Now I'm shifting a little bit. Dr. Jacqui Mack-Harris has joined us, and we are going to take calls 1-800-229-3000. And right now we're going to talk with Larry, who's calling us from Roanoke, Virginia. Listens on Sirius XM. Hello, Larry. How can we help you today?
How you guys doing? Great program. Been supporting you for years, and this is the first time I'm calling.
Well, thank you. Thanks, Larry. It's awesome. We're honored.
Okay, but we are foster parents, my wife and I, and we have a 15-year-old that simply will not communicate. She is probably a couple hours from her normal high school. She's entering the 11th grade, and just trying to have her talk to us, not come out of her room. Her aunt gave her a phone, so but it's taxing. We ask questions, she shrugs her shoulders or she shakes her head, and we know she's depressed. Doctors put her on medication, and it's just been really trying. And a friend of mine today said, well, why don't you call in and ask them and see what they have to say? So here I am.
I was a smart friend.
Well, Larry, how long has she been with you and your wife?
Well, she's only been with us for about a month.
Okay.
But she was in one foster care place for a year and a half. There were more kids there. Now it's just her and her younger brother. And something happened there, I don't know, with the respite. Now she's with us. And we know it's not a long time, but nothing has changed. In fact, it seems like it's gotten somewhat worse. And we're just at our wits' end. We have no idea how to help her. We're telling her that, we're wanting to help her, and she's just really depressed because she's away from her friends, and she wants to be with her friends, and she's never really had a parent, so she's probably, our guess, maybe a 12-year-old mentally, but that's kind of where we are.
And she's probably an old soul. Think about it, right? I say that because I actually was a social worker for foster kids for 6 years. And so my heart is going out to you and your wife. And that's why I was asking how long she has been with you. And her brother, is her brother with her too? Or is he back at the other placement?
He's with us.
Okay.
He's 8, but probably mentally 4 and 5. We're having issues with him too, but I want to focus on her.
So, and neither one of them have been with a primary caretaker their whole lives. They've been going from family to family to family to family. Am I right?
Well, it's been probably August of 22 is when they were removed from the home.
From home with their parents, or from the other foster home?
From their home with their mother.
Okay.
And their mother, really, they were pulled because of neglect.
Okay.
They just really haven't had a parent for all their lives. There's been several men through the house, and so.
Are they trying for reunification? Are there social workers?
And I think they've tried that, but I don't think that's going to happen. Actually, I think termination is coming soon.
Okay.
So you're an odd unicorn to her. You know why?
Why is that?
You may be the first safe male she's ever been around.
Yeah. Yes, and that's another issue. I've noticed there is some fear around me, and so I'm trying to be very careful with her, but it is difficult time. Yes, I would agree with that.
Yeah, because when there's a mom that's neglectful, and this is the hard part for you all as fostering. I have the biggest heart in the world for you guys, because you get kiddos and you get very little cryptic information, and it's like really trying to figure out this puzzle of a person, and it's really hard not to take their reactions personally. If I could just peel anything off of you and your wife, because I imagine you've been fostering for a while, it would be, this is not about you. It is really about bucket loads of loss and fear.
Yeah.
And it's highly likely, I'm not saying it did because I don't know this sweet gal's history, but with men coming in and out of the house, she might even be a sexual abuse survivor, right? And we don't know that. I don't want you to make that her story, but really, there's a reason that she's shut down and depressed. It's not just about missing her friends. It's a huge part of it because she's a teenager.
Developmentally, her friends are where it's at. If this were your birth child, you would be having the problem of her wanting to be with her friends. Say this was your birth child and you guys bought a house in a new town, got a new job, and you have to pick up and move. She would be acting this way because that's the thing that's most important to them. And so then add to that being a foster child, meaning your parents aren't parenting you. And so you're now becoming someone else's problem. And she's old enough to understand some of these dynamics. And the last home she was in, there were a lot of other kids. And so, one, she might have bonded with some of those kids. Two, some of those kids may have hurt her, or the home may have been unsafe in some way. And you don't know what all that is. I'm guessing you guys are curious and you would love for her to open up and share all that. But it's been a month. And she's been being tossed around for the past couple of years, at the very least, because they took her out of the home for some reason. So I'm sure things were happening there with all the neglect and the men. My husband and I fostered a family of 4 kids for a bit. And so my heart goes out to you, too. It is hard. You love those kids like you birthed those kids. That's why you make the commitment. And yet they don't have that same love for you. And
Exactly.
so they want their parents, period. No matter how awful they've been, their fantasy is that their mom or their dad is going to show up. And if mom has been the primary caregiver and they feel like she's the reason they were lost, then there's fantasy about one day my dad's going to know. He's going to find me. He's going to rescue me. And so you and your wife are not those people. So it's really hard to be the loving, caring, supportive parent and to have dreams and hopes for them and to desire for them to have the best of life, but to not be able to get in. And I think whatever you do in terms of trying to create safety in the way you guys communicate, trying to create structure and routine, making sure that she has safe space and privacy, but also that she's aware that there's protection and that there's boundaries and that there's rules and that it's important for her to stay within them. Being great parents is going to make all the difference in the world. Our foster kids were reunified with their mom, and there was a little struggle back and forth after that, and so we continued to try to work with her, and eventually it got too hard for me, so I took a step back. My kids have stayed in contact with them. They're still their siblings, and they have all done amazingly well. And it's interesting. One joined the military. My husband and I were both in the military. The hardest one of them all. He was a tough little dude at 11. Another one became a nurse, and I was a nurse at the time when they were living with us. And so we see influence that we had in their lives, even though at the time they were with us, it was just really hard and they wanted their mom back. We were not where they wanted to be. We loved them and we took good care of them. And they were from our church, and so they knew us and the youth department. But it was evident every single day they just wanted to go back home. And so for her, she just wants to go back to school because she's old enough to understand going back home is not happening. And so she wants to be able to pull on something that is hers. And so she's in grief, a tremendous amount of grief.
Yeah, I would agree.
Quick question. Do you guys have a social worker? I imagine you have adoptions. I mean, you have a foster social worker, right? Through the foster agency that we're with?
We do. Plus, our church is amazing. There's tons of people with foster kids. So we have a lot of support.
Love it. Quick question. I'm just thinking about a bridge for her, and if this would be something, it would be a cost for you, right? But sometimes we do these things in order to help a transition, a bridge. Would it be possible, even though it's 2 hours away, for you to go with her and her brother and just say, we'd like to get to see where your school is. We'd see if there's any possibility that you could meet a friend of hers at McDonald's to set up a hangout date, play date, where it's supervised, right? You're there and her friend is there. Right. But that might help her to feel like you're just not trying to get information out of her, but you're actually trying to love her in her world. And even though, she can't go back home, but just to build a bridge between some of those friends that probably she didn't get to say goodbye to, or they don't even know what happened. It happened so quick.
Right.
Yeah, if there's any way to make the connection with them, I agree. One of the things that helped in our transition is that we were over the youth department, and these were kids from our church, and so they still had that community. They did have to leave their schools, but they didn't have to leave their church, and so there was still a little bit of that connection there. But the leaving of schools, even as young elementary kids, was really hard because they're leaving their home, they're leaving their school.
Yeah,
then they go to Orangewood, and they have to leave that group home and to come to the next place, and they're constantly dragging their things away. So if it was your own child, you might do that, right? If you move 2 hours away, I know my nephew is spending time with his best friend right now in another state because the friend moved to another state. So in the summer, his mom lets him come and stay with him for a little bit so that they can still have that bond. And so offering something like that, I think would be definitely a olive branch.
How does that sound, Larry? Does that sound like it's doable for you and your wife?
Yeah, we'll look into that. In fact, I think one of the kids they used to be with is actually in the same town as us, And we've talked about getting together with them because they've asked, hey, can we see this individual?
I love that. I love that.
That may be a start.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I love that. Well, what we'll do is we're going to send you a book by Beth Guckenberger called Presence Matters. And that's what Jacqui and Sheri are talking about, is being present and recognizing that she's got a lot of challenges ahead of her. And you know what? As one of you said, she's a 15-year-old girl. So on top of being a foster child, like on top of all this disruption. So a lot of that happens. But Larry, we're grateful for your ministry to her and her brother. And we'll be praying for you along this line. If you need anything as far as a counselor, we can get you connected with one. We are grateful for those of you who are out there who are foster parents, and we know that it is a labor of love. We'll be right back after this, answering your questions.
When you give to the New Life Scholarship Fund, you're giving someone hope for a brighter future.
I was kind of in the closet and hid with my struggle. Your donation really made the difference, especially in my situation, because I would have getting laid off from my job.
At the New Life Intensives, hurting people are able to begin a new path towards healing and freedom that has an effect on all of those around them.
I think the people who support New Life financially are people that I'll never know. You know, I'll never be able to thank them personally for the gift that they gave to us. Their giving saved me, my husband, and our family from being torn apart.
To help hurting people to connect to the help they need, make your gift to the Scholarship Fund at newlife.com or by calling 1-800-NEW-LIFE and specifying scholarships.
Someone called and sponsored me to come this weekend. Whoever that is, just know that you saved a life. Literally, you saved my life.
1-800-NEW-LIFE. Daniel Grossman on coaching.
Coaches are really focused on the future and helping people to develop those skills and those strategies to help them move forward in their life. A coach really partners with you to focus on things like personal growth or health goals, spiritual growth, helping you develop in your career or possibly strengthening your relationships or maybe even breaking free from a negative pattern.
If you need a coach for life, your career, relationships, your health and fitness, leadership, and more, call New Life today and ask about the New Life Coaching Network. Our coaches have been screened and certified with the same intensive process we use for our network counselors.
Coaches use different techniques. Some like to use strategic questions and accountability, ultimately empowering you to take those next steps towards your goals.
Take control of your life and take action to achieve your goals. Call 1-800-NEW-LIFE and talk to us about getting a New Life coach today.
I really believe that everyone can use a coach in their corner.
1-800-NEW-LIFE. We'd love to hear from you. If you have a question or a comment, call toll-free 1-800-229-3000. Now back to New Life Live.
Welcome back. We are taking calls at 1-800-229-3000. And I just want to put a shout out there for intimacy in marriage. You know, after your relationship with God, your relationship with your spouse is really the next most important thing because it impacts everything that you do. And, you know, we have our Intimacy in Marriage Intensive July 26th through 28th in Washington, D.C. And it's not just for those of you who are in crisis. It could also be that you need to pour into your marriage. And maybe you need a refresher. We have some couples that just make a point of once a year, this is what they do because they want to have kind of a record of saying we are pouring into our marriages. We want to make this relationship the best it possibly can be. And we're not just a typical marriage intensive, like we're not going to make you rehearse your vows or anything like that, but we're going to give you practical information as well as just help you uncover why do you keep having the same struggle over and over again. So join us there. You know, many times we hear from you at other times when we are not recording live, like today. We'll have people that are listening on the podcast, they're listening through the internet, different ways. And so we've provided a way for you to submit your questions in other ways. So you can go to newlife.com/radio. And if you have a question that you can't ask during a live broadcast, you can submit it there. And just so happens, I have one that it's from Jason, and I want Terry to go ahead and roll that right now.
Hi, my name is Jason from San Antonio, Texas. have a question about getting some guidance on possible CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, from playing high school and college football years ago. I believe I've incurred brain trauma, which is now manifesting itself in a lot of different ways. I'm about 60 years old, almost 61. That combined with possible bipolar disorder, and if there's a combination between the two, mood swings, irritability, also some periods of hypomania, things like that. So I'm trying to get kind of grip on this whole thing. It's causing stress in my life. It's causing stress in my marriage with my wife. So I'd just like to get some information and some guidance on what I may need to do. I have a friend who's a doctor. He's also recommended possible the EMDR. And so I don't know if that would be helpful as well.
Wow, it's a great question, isn't it? And I'm glad you're on today, Sheri, because I know brain health is a big part of your life.
Yeah.
How would you direct Jason in this?
Well, first, I just want to say, Jason, thank you for calling us, because I love that you know that here at New Life, we care about body, brain, soul, and mind. And we are brain people here. And so I respect when you talked about that you have chronic traumatic encephalitis or encephalopathy. Yes. That can be caused, like you said, from football injuries. It can also be caused from traumatic brain injuries and being in the military. It can be first responders can get, hit on the head, soccer players, right? It's any type of behavior that's done where you have these chronic and traumatic brain injuries. And over time, left untreated, this brain, and it's interesting, as we age, the evidence of the traumatic brain injury even surfaces more. When you're asking about EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing is more of a therapeutic trauma approach. And I think the first approach I would go with you, Jason, would be biology. When it comes to the bipolar and the mood swings, and Dr. Jacqui will touch on that in a moment. But let me talk about your brain and brain repair. Wherever your brain is today, even at 61, there's things you can do to repair your brain. One of the first places I would encourage you to consider going is a place called Cereset. It's CERESET.org. Now, what do they do? I have a friend of mine who actually fell out of a 4-story building. He was pushed out of there by somebody who broke into his hotel room. He was a leader and was speaking in Barbados, and somebody snuck in, wanted a computer, shoved him out of a 4-story building. And when I'm talking about trauma, I often use Rick's story because he did everything. He did EMDR, he did all kinds of stuff. But the thing that helped his biology, his brain repair more than anything else, was the Cereset, because the brain actually was caught in a place of stuckness from the blows of the head trauma, and it helped to move it from being more fixed and unflexible to more of a flexible, able to make decisions better. He was finding he could read better. His things about even his eyesight changed, and it got him into a place of rest instead of being more agitated. Brain traumas can cause agitation. And so I think that's the first place that I'd like to go. But when we come back, Becky, can we talk about bipolar? Because we need to mention that as well, because he's got a lot going on in his brain.
Yeah, we absolutely will. And Cereset has helped so many people. Steve Arterburn himself has received those treatments. And I've heard so many stories. I can't say enough about the product, the help, and it's across the country.
Yep.
So it's not just in one area. But we'll continue the conversation with Jason or about what he's struggling with. It's always something. And like you said, Sheri, we care about the whole person. And sometimes our physical bodies are creating challenges with our mental and emotional and our spiritual health. So we got to look at it all. We will be right back after this break.
For most of my life, I've been dealing with an opiate addiction.
Why is opioid addiction quickly becoming one of our nation's biggest killers? Maybe it's because it isn't only those who are addicted who are in denial.
We did what I see so many parents do, is it can't be an addiction. There's something medically wrong.
It's impossible to solve a problem when you don't know what you're up against, and families will try to find any explanation except the one that will put them on the right path.
Alcoholism and drug addiction is a family disease. It doesn't affect just the individual.
If someone you love is abusing painkillers, know what you're up against. It's time to admit its addiction and seek treatment. Call us today at 1-800-NEW-LIFE. We have partner treatment centers around the country. Call 1-800-639-5433 or visit us online at newlife.com.
We just made a decision. We will do whatever it takes.
1-800-NEW-LIFE.
I was sort of vaguely familiar that the 12 steps had some origination in the Bible. I found Life Recovery, and one of the things I liked so much was that it had such a broad appeal. It wasn't limited to just alcohol or drugs, that it was addressing a wide range of problems.
At New Life, we believe everyone can benefit from a life recovery experience. There are life recovery groups all over the country. They take place online, in conference calls, and in person. And if there isn't one in your area, we can help you start one. We have startup materials, leaders' guides, CDs, Bibles, and more, all with discounts available for groups. Call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE and ask for Terry Ward. The 12 Steps have long been a great help to people in recovery because much of the 12 Steps' power comes from the fact that they capture principles clearly revealed in the Bible.
The 12 steps is really a pattern for all of us as Christians.
Call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. That's 1-800-639-5433. We're glad you joined us for New Life Live. To be a part of the program, call 1-800-229-3000. Now back to New Life Live.
Welcome back. Yes, I just want to repeat what Terry just said, 1-800-229-3000. We want to hear from you. Right now, we are finishing a conversation. Jason called in with, he has had brain trauma, is concerned about bipolar disorder.
Mood swings, hypomania.
Yeah, all of the stuff that kind of goes along with head injury. And we wanted to hear from you, Jacqui. You know, what would you offer, Jason?
Well, I agree about the Sarah set. And again, it's CER.
ESET.org.
Yes. And so in my brain, I see it as C, reset. Right?
Yeah, that's right.
The piece about bipolar I want to touch on, and the treatments. There are so many different treatment options, but I think it is important to have the brain thoroughly evaluated before moving on to any of those treatments. Sometimes treatments are contraindicated for certain things, and the bipolar may be a result of the traumatic brain injuries. And so if you've had multiple concussions, there's been multiple times of hitting your head, it might still be inflamed, and as it's not been being treated and we don't know what part of the brain was damaged, we go in and we start manipulating with doing eye movement. We don't know what we're opening up. So let's focus on going and getting an evaluation of your brain at Sarah's set and seeing if you meet the criteria to work with them and getting that going. Also, being in a life recovery group, being in therapy, being in group therapy, I would just surround yourself with help, with supports, with other people who are seeing you on a daily, regular basis so that they know when there's a shift and you have lots of support. So one person, your wife, isn't bearing the weight of your emotions, your emotional reactions and responses, your needs, the challenges, the difficulty with the memory and things like that. Have loving, caring, supporting, safe people in your life as you're on this journey. And it may be a lifelong journey of maintaining a healthy brain. Right. And we know exercise and diet matters. And so consider how you are caring for your body in terms of nutrition. There's a lot of great things out there. I know I'm a mediator. Veganism is a hard concept for me, but there is evidence that having a more plant-based diet helps our bodies heal faster. And so just consider, and I know I don't know that we have a nutritionist, but I know we can connect him with a life recovery group and
we sure can.
A therapist that specializes in traumatic brain injury.
That's it. I think that's a great idea. And I'm wondering, too, if we'll get him connected with the Amen Clinic, because I think if he hasn't already done that, that would be helpful.
Yeah, that would just be a good thing. It's just, because it's good to have, too, a psychiatrist peeking in, somebody that's brain-friendly, who is able to, and that's what I do appreciate about the Amen Clinics, is they might look at nutrapharmaceuticals and supplements as well as interventions, psychotropic, but they're going to be caring to help your brain get to a much better place.
And from a holistic place, right? This isn't not just one thing. There's not a magic bullet. So you might have to take medication, or you might have to change something in your lifestyle. You might have to go to groups regularly, go to meetings regularly, but all of that working in concert won't just affect your brain health, it'll affect your physical health and your spiritual health and your relational health as well.
I agree. Well, we're grateful that you submitted your call, and we're going to go back to the calls, and we're going to talk with Brian, who's calling us from Denver, Colorado, listens on the internet. Thank you for calling, Brian. How can we help you today?
Hey, ladies. So I have a situation with my married daughter, who has now been married 4 years, and she showed up a couple nights ago on our doorstep, and her husband had told her that he no longer wants to be married to her. And the reason really flies in from he's just not happy. The marriage is not what he expected. He has in his background a ton of trauma that he is getting help for. He does get help on a weekly basis with a counselor here in town, and he has been doing that since early January. And so obviously, this is one of a father's worst nightmares is to see his only daughter go through this. And I'm planning on meeting with him next week to have a little chat. And I have to calm down a little bit because there's a lot of things I would like to tell him that I won't. But I would just love some advice for me and any of the other dads out there that are dealing with this in meeting up with a son-in-law about the separation that he's initiated in their marriage.
And can I just have the general age of them, Brian?
Sure. They are late 20s.
Okay.
Brian, I have adult daughters. One of my daughters just got married maybe a year ago. The other one's been married about 11 years, and amazing son-in-laws. And so my heart goes out to you. I can only imagine how hard it must be to have your baby girl come home crying because he doesn't want to be married to her anymore. And when you said you were going to have a conversation with him, I have to admit my heart jumped a little bit. And so I was glad to hear you say you have to calm down a bit. And so I'm curious what your support is like. Do you have someone you can bounce ideas off of? Because I would venture to guess that a lot of what you will have to say to your son-in-law, he needs to hear. But you might need some practice in how to say the things with less threat. And I'm curious about, you said he had a lot of trauma in his background. I know from my own personal experience with son-in-laws, they didn't have a dad like my husband. And he is by no means perfect, but he's been a good dad, and he's been a role model dad for all the young kids growing up and the young boys that my girls knew in school. And so they have a really good relationship because my husband didn't have a good relationship with his father and didn't feel like he had guidance. Right. And so I think your role in his life is probably important, and it's hard to maybe sometimes separate out, that's my baby girl, but also she loves him and wants to help. So back to my original question, do you have support for you as you are supporting and encouraging them?
So I am very fortunate in that I do have a lot of very wise friends that I can bounce these ideas off of. I do have a support function of network, is the best way to put it, of people, not only friends, but people at church. So I do have that. You know, my son-in-law comes from a very dysfunctional family, and his father was not a good father, and his stepfather is not a good father. So I've always really taken him as my own son. And, you know, one of the things that I know that I need to tell him is that regardless of what the outcome is, you are married to my daughter, and therefore you are our family no matter what happens.
Yeah, we have a no-return policy in our family, too.
There is a no-return policy. And I would have this same conversation with one of my blood sons that I am having with you, my son who married into the family.
Yeah, I love that.
Sheri? I'm going to take a little different take. And this isn't to disrupt you, Brian. It's just, remember we started the show and we were talking about a 15-year-old girl that is being fostered and how it's like a puzzle. There's a puzzle that's going on. And he's making a pretty big proclamation. I don't want to be married anymore. As if it's something wrong with the marriage. Are there any red flags? Has your daughter shared anything with you? It might be really scary for her to come forward with maybe things that she's found, things that she's discovered, things that was going on in their courtship she didn't want to tell you. Often there's all these secrets, and those secrets may be part of what's actually been festering for 4 years. So, you know, do you know about any secrets? Have you asked her?
Hold that thought. Brian, hold that thought. You can hear the music, and we're going to take a quick break. But during the break, you can think about those things. It's good to hear both sides of that, right? I mean, that's why we love to have all the wisdom of a couple of people, right? It's heartbreaking when our families go through this, but that's why we believe in the work that we do here. And we're grateful for those who support it, our Club New Life family, the donors. It just really makes a difference, because when there's trouble, you have someplace to go. We're going to be right back after this break, and we'll help Brian.
We all face days where life throws us a curveball and our routines or plans get disrupted. Things we wanted to do are forced to take a backseat to the unexpected demands of the day. If you normally listen to New Life Live on a radio station, well, you might not be able to that day. And on these hectic days when you're feeling stressed or frazzled, hearing the sound of counsel given on New Life Live is just what you need to navigate the unexpected things of life.
Every time I'm troubled or I have a problem, I'll cut on New Life, and there's always something that is said that is helpful to me.
By listening, I have learned more than I can ever express about how God wants me to live.
Download the New Life app for the easiest way to listen wherever you are and at a time that's convenient for you, or watch the show on our YouTube channel. You can even subscribe to our podcast from your favorite podcast provider. You never have to miss a day of New Life. Wherever you are, we are. Club New Life changes lives.
You guys came along into my life in 2022. That was a really, really difficult year of my life.
You can help New Life Ministries provide Christ-centered hope and counseling resources to thousands of people by joining Club New Life today.
I began to really process a lot of things that I've needed to for a long time, and y'all were a very big part of that.
When you sign up to support us monthly through Club New Life, you'll make a difference in the lives of individuals and families with godly counsel and connection to help.
I came out of it having never experienced anything like that, and y'all were there.
Join today and help continue the message of hope to a troubled world.
I knew I had to keep going, and I joined Club New Life, and y'all have been the resource that has now been a light for my wife and I.
Go to newlife.com/CNL, and together we can help hurting people find help and hope in life's hardest places.
Keep doing what you do because it makes a difference.
newlife.com/CNL. To find out more information about New Life or to order any of the resources mentioned on today's program, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Now back to New Life Live.
Welcome back. We have been talking with Brian, whose daughter came home. Their marriage is in trouble. And he's wanting to understand how can he communicate with this son-in-law and just really help his daughter along the way. And Sheri, you'd asked a really pivotal question, really, about maybe there's something that your daughter wasn't really open about or doesn't feel like she could be. So you want to continue with that, Sheri?
Yeah, it's kind of an awkward thing, right? In families, especially when something isn't going well, you're afraid to let your parents in. You don't want them to come to a quick judgment and then not be able to, repair a marriage that you're wanting. But have you talked to your daughter? Was there any, because he says no longer wants to be married to her. It's a form of gaslighting, to be honest. I'm uncomfortable with him pinning it on her as if there isn't anything going on for him. And I don't think he's doing it on purpose, but it's already starting off to a negative start. So anything that you know about?
So my daughter and I are very close. And so I do know most everything that is going on in her life. There has been no infidelity. There's no physical violence. She doesn't feel unsafe physically in her relationship. But as mentioned, my son-in-law does have trauma in his background. He's former military and currently in law enforcement, and so he has a very, very stressful job.
So let me ask you a question. I know you're military, Dr. Jacqui, so I want you to speak to that. But I do know, and I'm not trying to put him into a square peg, but among military and the police force, because of their stressful jobs, many of those guys struggle with pornography. Mm-hmm. And so I would be wondering, has there been pornography? Is he using pornography? Has there been something because of how prevalent it is? Is there this area of being dissatisfied? Is there a temptation? Has he crossed a line somewhere? I'm not saying necessarily to have a full-blown affair, but there's just so much going on today. I mean, you can get a nude massage in your neighborhood now if you want. It's crazy what's out there. So what I'm saying is it might do, if there can be some kind and gentle sifting around some things that, might be going on. Why did his dad leave? Were there infidelities? Was he abusive? There's just lots of things that go on that, we often see get replicated.
I think another thing that can happen, especially with people who are prior military and in law enforcement, is that their partner has a desire for something for them they don't feel like they can give. Like there's a need to, hey, what time are you coming home? Why are you questioning me? Why did you buy that? What are you doing with that? Why are you questioning me? Why are you trying to control me? So I'm curious as to what his issue is. He said he doesn't want to be married to her. He doesn't want to be in the marriage anymore. Has he said anything about his why?
Part of it is he came into the marriage with an expectation that his wife would do a number of things, make sure the house is clean, have his meals. He's a very old-fashioned person
so
way.
So he's idealized what marriage would be. He came out of a dysfunctional family. His mom didn't have a good marriage a couple of times, and in his mind, I imagine there's this fantasy of he'll have the kind of marriage that he wants because of who he is. That doesn't take into consideration the other person. And so his expectations are probably outlandish, over the top. There may even be a little bit of narcissism in which he thinks he's amazing and he thinks she's amazing, otherwise he wouldn't be with her. But he wants what he wants from her and expects that is the way it should just be. The vacillator has a hard time empathizing with the other person's perspective. And so he can't see her. And he doesn't feel that she sees him, because if she did see him, she wouldn't keep doing these things or wouldn't keep not doing these things. And there's a lot of that going on too. And then it does lead to all those other things like Dr. Sheri was talking about. But sometimes the root is just simply the expectation. And I tell people often, if you want peace in your marriage, release people from the prison of your expectations. Your expectations for what I do in my life mean nothing to me. My life, I have to live this life. I have to answer to God. We can talk about it. We can go do a comfort circle and figure out, where is that expectation for you coming from? Where is that need coming from? Why is this meaningful for you? And how can we work together so that I can meet some of those things without giving up who I am as a person? I think how we love would be helpful. And I know that he's saying he doesn't want to be in the marriage, but intimacy in marriage has saved marriages that are at this point, and it's coming up in July in DC. And if there's some way that they could get there, if he would just give it another shot, I think that would be a good direction to go, because this, even if he does have porn and some ideas about flirtatiousness out on the job and things like that, that stuff won't even get dealt with if because he's not dealing with the trauma of his childhood. He's just fantasizing about what good life should be and trying to force it to happen. And he really does have a lot more to learn about who he is. And also being in the military, that it's its own kind of trauma, and it creates an expectation. In the military, we are taught that people behave a certain way. The mission comes first. You must do this thing. This is the chain of command. And in a chain of command, he's at the top. And she's subordinate, and there's some things he expects of his subordinates, and that gets done without question. And so I know personally from having a Marine veteran husband, being a veteran of the Air Force myself, having a son-in-law who's active duty Navy and a son-in-law who's a veteran of the Marine Corps, it's hard to shake some of those ideas, and especially if you then go into law enforcement, which is another culture that is quite similar. I'm the boss, and my job is to get people to do what I want them to do, when I want them to do it, how I want them to do it. And often police officers' nervous systems are triggered when the response is not what they expect, as we see.
So let's, before we run out of time, I want to offer Brian something to support his daughter in this shift. As he's thinking about talking to her, Sheri, what can Brian do, to help her in this situation?
Be loyal to her. Love her. Let her know there's nothing that she would share that's going to frighten you or change your mind about how you see her. And ask her if there's any secrets. Ask her, has there been any pornography? Have you ever found it on his phone? Don't be afraid to ask her that. And then ask if there's any possibility of them doing some couples counseling. Has this been a unilateral decision that he's made as he's gone into therapy in the last 6 months? Right. And is there any hope for him to meet with her and somebody else?
Right, because he's only giving his therapist his side.
Exactly.
And she's, working with him on that.
Yeah, it's a tough situation. You're a good dad.
Yeah, great dad. I wish I had a dad like you that would do that with me and for me.
Yeah, it's tough though, and along the same lines, it's always something, and so we have to continue to look at things. We're going to send him a copy of How We Love. We're going to continue to take calls for another hour. If you're on the line, hold on. 1-800-229-3000 is the number. Thank you, Jacqui. Thank you, Sheri, and thank you, callers and listeners. We are grateful that you tuned in today. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening. We hope this program has helped you by giving you insights for handling the challenges you face in your life. We want you to know that we're here for you, but you also need to know that New Life Live is a listener-supported ministry. To make your donation or to get any of the resources mentioned on today's program, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. That's 1-800-639-5433, or write to us at New Life Ministries, P.O. Box 1029, Lake Forest, California, 92609. Please join us again tomorrow for New Life Live.
Thanks for watching today. We love helping people. I hope you sense that. And we know that there's always hope if you find the right resource. Now, if something we've said to somebody else applies to you, that's fantastic. That's what we're hoping for. But also, if you want to join us directly, you can call 1-800-229-3000 between 1 and 3 Eastern Time, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Those are the best times to get through. And while you're here on YouTube, check out these other videos that we've done to help people see where they could grow or a different path to take. And if you do that, would you give us a thumbs up on the video, and please subscribe to this channel. There are many ways that we can help you outside of the radio program, and it's very hard for some to pick up a phone and dial 1-800-NEW-LIFE, but when you do, we put you in touch with somebody who cares about you, knows all the resources out there, and they're going to find the best for you. There is no reason to struggle alone. I hope to see you tomorrow. Hope you'll invite somebody else to come and join that maybe needs just a little bit of help along the way. I'll see you next time.